I'm Amelia, 28 years old, and my world shattered the day I collapsed during my biggest presentation. One minute I was confidently pitching to executives, the next I was waking up in a sterile hospital room, alone and confused. The nurse said they'd called my emergency contacts, my parents. Hours passed. No calls, no texts, no parents. Then my phone buzzed. My sister Jessica was on her way. What I didn't know then was that my collapse would expose the family secret my parents had been hiding for 20 years. Before I begin my story, let me know where you're watching from. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt abandoned by someone you trusted. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. For 3 years, I'd been climbing the corporate ladder at Bennett Marketing Solutions, pushing myself beyond normal human limits. My colleagues called me the machine because I never seemed to stop. 14-hour days were my normal. Weekends at the office were my routine. While other 28-year-olds were building relationships and enjoying life, I was building presentations and enjoying the rare praise from my demanding boss. Amelia never disappoints, my boss would tell clients. Those words were oxygen to me. I lived for that validation, craved it like a drug. Each successful project fueled my addiction to achievement. Each compliment temporarily filled the emptiness I'd carried since childhood. My recent promotion to senior marketing strategist had only intensified the pressure. Suddenly I was managing a team of 5 while still handling my own massive workload. Sleep became optional. Proper meals became rare. Coffee became a food group. The headache started small, just annoying tension at my temples that ibuprofen could handle. Then came the dizziness. Standing up too quickly would send the room spinning. I ignored it all. Just push through, I told myself. The same words my father had repeated throughout my childhood. Weakness is a choice, he'd say whenever I complained about anything. My mother would silently nod beside him. Their expectations had shaped me into a perfectionist who saw normal human limitations as personal failures. The day of my collapse started like any other. I woke at 5 a.m. after just 4 hours of sleep, my head already pounding. I had been preparing for this presentation for weeks, pitching our agency's services to global innovation partners, a client worth millions. Landing this account would cement my reputation and finally earn my father's elusive approval. I arrived at the office before anyone else, rehearsing my presentation for the 100th time. The fluorescent lights seemed unusually harsh that morning, drilling into my skull. My vision occasionally blurred, forcing me to blink hard to refocus. By the time our potential clients arrived, my hands were shaking so badly I had to clutch my presentation clicker with both hands. "Amelia, you don't look well," my assistant Thomas whispered as we entered the conference room. "I'm fine," I snapped, immediately regretting my tone. "Sorry, just nervous. This one matters." The presentation started well. I was on autopilot, delivering the carefully crafted pitch I could recite in my sleep. 10 minutes in, the words on my slides began to swim. I started losing my train of thought mid-sentence. The room felt unbearably hot, then strangely cold. The concerned faces of my colleagues came in and out of focus. As you can see from our projected metrics. My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. I tried to continue but couldn't remember what came next. The confused expressions around the table grew more concerned. "Amelia?" My boss's voice seemed to come from underwater. The last thing I remember was Thomas lunging toward me as the floor rushed up to meet me. I woke up disoriented, the harsh hospital lighting assaulting my eyes. A steady beeping sound from a monitor beside me marked each heartbeat. And 4 line ran into my arm. The clinical smell of disinfectant filled my nostrils. "Welcome back," a nurse said, checking the monitors. Her name tag read Denise. "You gave your colleagues quite a scare." "What happened?" My voice came out as a dry croak. "You collapsed during your meeting. Your blood pressure bottomed out. The doctor will be in shortly to discuss your condition, but it appears to be a severe stress-induced collapse. Your body essentially forced an emergency shutdown." I reached for my phone on the bedside table, my fingers trembling. First call, my mother. Amelia? Her voice was distant, distracted. I could hear the clinking of dishes in the background. What's wrong? I'm in the middle of preparing for the neighborhood association meeting. Mom, I'm in the hospital. I collapsed at work. The words hung in the air. A pause. The hospital? Well, that's concerning. What did the doctor say? No panic. No immediate response of "I'll be right there." Just clinical curiosity. They're still running tests. Could you and Dad come? My voice sounded small, childlike. Your father's in a very important meeting that can't be rescheduled. Let me see what we can do. Which hospital is it? I gave her the information, fighting back unexpected tears. After hanging up, I texted Jessica, my younger sister. Unlike my parents' lukewarm response, her reply was immediate. OMG. Staying right where you are. I'm leaving work now. Be there in 30 minutes. Despite our complicated relationship, Jessica's response filled me with relief. While my parents had always favored me growing up, heaping expectations on their gifted daughter, Jessica and I had managed to form our own bond. She'd been living in my shadow, but somehow never held it against me. If anything, she'd become fiercely protective of me, especially in recent years. The doctor arrived, a serious-looking woman with kind eyes. Ms. Taylor, I'm Dr. Rivera. We're concerned about your condition. Your collapse wasn't just from overwork. Some of your test results are showing abnormalities we need to investigate further. Her words barely registered. I was still processing my parents' absence and the hollow feeling it left. The same hollow feeling I'd been trying to fill with achievements my entire life. Jessica burst into my hospital room like a whirlwind, her arms full of items, my favorite blanket from my apartment, comfortable clothes, toiletries, and even my cherished childhood stuffed rabbit I kept hidden in my bedside drawer. How did you get into my apartment? I asked, genuinely confused but grateful. You gave me your spare key last year, remember? She dropped everything on the chair and rushed to hug me, careful of the foreline. God, Amelia, you scared me to death. What did the doctor say? Her genuine concern made my throat tight. Still running tests. Where are Mom and Dad? Jessica's expression darkened. They haven't shown up yet? Mom said Dad's in some important meeting. More important than his daughter in the hospital? Jessica's voice rose, her hands balling into fists. Typical. Absolutely typical. She pulled out her phone and stepped into the hallway. Through the partially open door, I could hear snippets of her one-sided conversation. No, Aunt Carol, she's not okay. They haven't even bothered to show up. I know, it's unbelievable even for them. No, don't tell them I called you. You know how they get about family business. Jessica had always been the emotional one in our family, wearing her heart on her sleeve. Growing up, our parents viewed her expressiveness as a weakness, especially compared to my controlled demeanor. The memory of a particular birthday rose unbidden in my mind. I was 12, Jessica 9. My father had bought me an expensive telescope after I expressed interest in astronomy. For our future scientist, he'd beamed, while my mother took countless photos. Later that same year, when Jessica begged for ballet lessons, my father dismissed it as an impractical waste of time. I still remember Jessica's crumpled expression, and the way my mother simply said, "Listen to your father, dear." The guilt of that childhood favoritism had followed me into adulthood. I'd been given every advantage, the best tutors, summer enrichment programs, college connections through my father's network. Jessica had received the bare minimum, yet somehow emerged as the more balanced adult. She had real friends, a job she enjoyed rather than endured, and seemed genuinely happy. Dr. Rivera returned with a clipboard, interrupting my thoughts. Ms. Taylor, we've received some of your test results. You're experiencing adrenal fatigue compounded by an underlying condition we need to investigate further. I need to ask about your family medical history. Jessica had returned to the room and sat beside my bed, her expression suddenly guarded. Any history of autoimmune disorders in your family? Dr. Rivera asked. Not that I know of, I replied. Endocrine disorders? Thyroid issues? I shook my head. What about your extended family? Grandparents, aunts, uncles? I don't really know much about my extended family's medical history, I admitted. My parents don't talk much about health issues. As the doctor continued questioning, I noticed Jessica becoming increasingly uncomfortable. She shifted in her seat, avoiding eye contact. When Dr. Rivera asked about genetic conditions, Jessica abruptly stood up. I need to make a call, she mumbled, stepping out again. The doctor finished her questions and explained they needed to run more specialized tests. We'll need to keep you for observation at least another day. Your body is showing signs of long-term stress damage. After she left, Jessica returned, her face composed but her eyes revealing she'd been crying. Everything okay? I asked. Just worried about you, she replied, not quite meeting my eyes. She busied herself arranging my things, placing my stuffed rabbit carefully beside my pillow. My phone rang, finally, my parents calling back. I put it on speaker. Amelia, honey, my mother's voice filled the room. Dad and I are still caught up. His meeting ran long, and now we're stuck in traffic heading to another commitment we simply can't miss. The hospital said it's not immediately life-threatening, my father chimed in, his tone businesslike. So there's no need for us to rush down there and sit around waiting. We'll visit when things settle down. Jessica's face flushed with anger. I could see her physically restraining herself from grabbing the phone. I understand, I said automatically, the people-pleaser in me still desperate for their approval. After hanging up, Jessica's control finally broke. You understand? Amelia, for God's sake. You're in the hospital with a serious condition, and they're too busy with a commitment they can't miss. What commitment could possibly be more important? It's fine, Jess. Really? It's not fine. It's never been fine. She ran her hands through her hair in frustration. They've always been good at not showing up when it really matters. Something in her tone made me look at her more closely. What do you mean by that? Before she could answer, Dr. Rivera returned, her expression grave. Ms. Taylor, we found something concerning in your latest tests. Dr. Rivera pulled up a chair, her clipboard clutched tightly. Ms. Taylor, your test results indicate markers for Addison's disease, a rare adrenal condition. The symptoms align with what you've been experiencing: fatigue, blood pressure issues, dizziness. However, there's an unusual presentation that suggests a genetic component. The word genetic made Jessica visibly tense beside me. We'd like to run more specific tests to confirm, Dr. Rivera continued. Ideally, we'd also test immediate family members, as this particular presentation often runs in families. Our parents aren't here yet, I explained. I understand. But this information is important for your treatment plan. She turned directly to Jessica. Would you be willing to be tested? Siblings can provide valuable genetic information. Jessica's knuckles turned white as she gripped the edge of my bed. I don't think that would be helpful. Dr. Rivera looked confused. Actually, it could be very helpful in confirming. There's something you need to know about our family, Jessica interrupted, her voice strained. But before she could continue, a hospital administrator knocked and entered the room. Ms. Taylor? I need to discuss your insurance situation. The administrator glanced at Dr. Rivera. Sorry to interrupt, but there's an urgent flag on the account. Dr. Rivera excused herself, promising to return later, while the administrator took her place with an apologetic expression. I'm afraid your insurance company is questioning coverage for these tests. They're claiming the condition might be pre-existing and therefore subject to different coverage terms. Pre-existing? But I was just diagnosed today, I protested. They're suggesting symptoms may have been present before your current policy took effect. Without documentation of when symptoms began, they're hesitant to approve the specialized testing Dr. Rivera has ordered. The administrator explained the potential costs without insurance, astronomical figures that made my already racing heart beat faster. As a single professional with substantial student loans and a recently purchased condo, these medical bills could financially devastate me. "Don't worry about the money," Jessica said firmly after the administrator left. "We'll figure it out." "Jess, we're talking about thousands of dollars." "I have resources," she said, surprising me. "I can cover whatever insurance won't." Jessica had always lived modestly. She worked as a teacher at a public school, hardly a lucrative career. Her apartment was small, her car old. How could she possibly afford to cover major medical expenses? "What resources?" "You're a teacher." "I have savings you don't know about," she replied vaguely. "Trust me on this, okay?" Before I could press further, her phone rang. She checked the caller ID and stepped away, but remained close enough that I could hear her side of the conversation. "Yes, this is Jessica Taylor. I understand the trust isn't accessible until—" "No, this qualifies as a medical emergency under Section 4. I need to speak with Mr. Daniels directly." "Yes, I'll hold." After a pause, "Mr. Daniels, thank you for taking my call. It's about accessing the trust." "Yes, for Amelia. The circumstances meet the emergency provision. I know we discussed waiting, but her rightful claim can't wait any longer." "Yes, I understand the implications." She ended the call looking distressed and determined simultaneously. "Jessica, what trust? What rightful claim? What are you talking about?" I demanded as she returned to my bedside. She sat heavily in the chair, her shoulders slumped with the weight of whatever she was carrying. "I've been trying to find the right moment to tell you this for years, but Mom and Dad always—" She trailed off, tears welling in her eyes. "Tell me what?" Jessica took my hand, her own trembling. "Amelia, Mom and Dad aren't your biological parents. I found out years ago. You're adopted." The words hit me like a physical blow. The room seemed to tilt and spin, reminiscent of the moments before my collapse. "That's not possible," I whispered. "They would have told me." "They should have," Jessica agreed, her voice breaking. "But they didn't. And now your health depends on knowing the truth." "I found the adoption papers by accident," Jessica explained, still holding my hand tightly. "I was 16, searching through Dad's office for my birth certificate for a school trip. Instead, I found a locked file with your adoption records." The monitor beside my bed registered my increasing heart rate. A nurse glanced in but left when Jessica waved her away reassuringly. "The paperwork showed you were adopted as an infant, just 3 months old. There was a strict confidentiality agreement." When I confronted Mom and Dad, they were furious. Jessica's eyes darkened at the memory. "They made me swear never to tell you. Said it would destroy you to know you weren't really theirs. That the family bond was what mattered, not biology." My mind raced through childhood memories, re-examining them through this new lens. The lack of baby photos before 3 months. The absence of birth stories most parents love to tell. My mother's strange reaction whenever anyone said I looked like her, a pleased smile instead of the natural agreement most biological parents express. "So their perfect daughter wasn't even theirs," I said bitterly. "No wonder they didn't come to the hospital. I'm just a project they invested in, not real family." "Amelia, no. That's not. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" The betrayal from Jessica felt almost as painful as my parents' deception. "I wanted to, so many times. But they convinced me it would break you. And then as we got older, I started doing my own research." Jessica pulled out her phone, opening a photo album. "I've been looking into your biological family for years." She showed me photographs of strangers who nonetheless seemed hauntingly familiar. A woman with my exact eye shape. A man with my distinctive widow's peak hairline. A family group photo where several members had my same long, tapered fingers. When you started having health problems last year, the migraines, the fatigue, I accelerated my search. Jessica scrolled to medical documents. Your biological family has a history of adrenal disorders. 3 cases of Addison's disease in your maternal line. I've been gathering this information, planning to tell you when I had everything you'd need to understand your medical background. The medical implications hit me fully. So all this time, I've been working with an incomplete medical history. The doctors have been missing critical information. Which is why I've been trying to. The door swung open, interrupting her explanation. My parents finally arrived, looking polished and composed as always. My mother in her perfectly tailored business casual outfit, not a hair out of place. My father in his customary blazer and crisp button-down shirt. Neither looked particularly worried. Their expressions changed instantly when they saw Jessica sitting beside me. "Jessica, we didn't expect you to be here," my mother said, her voice tight. My father's eyes narrowed. "You should have called us before coming." The strange greeting suddenly made perfect sense. They weren't surprised to see me in a hospital bed, they were alarmed to find Jessica already here, with unlimited access to me. They knew what she might have told me. "I know everything," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "About the adoption. The secrets. All of it." My mother's face crumpled. My father's hardened into a mask. "Jessica had no right to tell you like this," he said coldly. "No right?" I was shouting now, years of suppressed emotions boiling over. "I'm in the hospital with a potentially genetic condition, and you think keeping your precious secret is more important than my health? What kind of parents are you?" "The kind who gave you everything," my father shot back. "Every advantage, every opportunity." "Amelia, sweetheart," my mother interjected, tears streaming down her face. "We only wanted what was best for you. We wanted you to feel like you belonged completely. Like you were truly ours." "You made her feel like she had to earn your love," Jessica said quietly. "Always pushing for more achievements, more perfection. She's been killing herself trying to be worthy of parents who wouldn't even drop everything to come to the hospital when she collapsed." My father turned his cold gaze to Jessica. "This doesn't concern you. This is between us and Amelia." "It concerns all of us," Jessica insisted. "Especially since I've been in contact with Amelia's biological family." The blood drained from my father's face. "You did what?" "They've been searching for her for years," Jessica continued, her voice gaining strength. "They never willingly gave her up. There was deception involved in the adoption, deception you orchestrated, Dad." My mother gasped, looking at my father in shock. Clearly, this was news to her as well. "You've been fed lies," my father said dismissively. "Whatever story they've concocted." "I've seen the original documents," Jessica interrupted. "Not the sanitized versions you kept. I know what really happened." My father grabbed my mother's arm. "We're leaving. Amelia, when you're thinking clearly again, we can discuss this as a family. Without outside interference." He glared at Jessica. "She is family," I said firmly. "The only one who's been honest with me." My mother reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Amelia, please try to understand. We love you so much. Everything we did was out of love." "Love doesn't lie." "For 28 years, I replied. "Love would have been here when I needed you." They left, my father practically dragging my mother, who kept looking back with tearful eyes. The door closed behind them, leaving a heavy silence in their wake. "There's more," Jessica said softly. "So much more you need to know." My parents' angry exit left the room charged with tension. My father's parting words echoed in my mind, "You'll regret digging into this." It wasn't concern in his voice, it was a threat. "He's afraid," Jessica said, watching the door as if expecting them to burst back in. "He's always been afraid this day would come." "Tell me everything," I demanded. "No more filtering or protecting me." Jessica nodded and reached for her bag, pulling out a thick manila envelope. I've been collecting information for years. After I found the adoption papers, I couldn't stop thinking about what else they might be hiding. She spread the contents across my hospital bed. Birth certificates, my original one with different names listed as parents, and the amended one I'd always believed was real. Photographs of a young couple holding a newborn. Legal documents with sections highlighted. Letters addressed to our beloved daughter that I'd never received. Your biological parents are Catherine and Michael Bennett, Jessica explained. They were young when they had you, just 22. Catherine had a complicated pregnancy and suffered postpartum depression. During that vulnerable time, they temporarily placed you with an adoption agency, intending it to be a brief arrangement until Catherine recovered. I stared at the photo of the young couple. The woman had my eyes, my nose. The man, my widow's peak and jawline. The genetic connection was undeniable. Dad was a junior partner at the law firm handling adoptions for that agency, Jessica continued. He and Mom had been trying to have a child for years without success. When your file crossed his desk, She hesitated. He what? He manipulated the paperwork. Made it appear your biological parents had permanently surrendered their rights. By the time Catherine recovered and tried to reclaim you, the adoption had been rushed through. They were told it was too late, that you were legally ours now. My head spun with this information. So he stole me? His own client's child? Essentially, yes. And he used his legal knowledge to make it nearly impossible for them to find you. Changed your first name from Lily to Amelia. Used his connections to seal the records. A knock at the door interrupted us. A middle-aged man in a crisp suit entered, his expression serious but kind. Ms. Taylor? I'm Martin Rollins, attorney representing the Bennett family. He glanced at Jessica. I see Jessica has already begun explaining the situation. Jessica nodded. I called him when I knew I'd have to tell you everything. Martin set his briefcase on the table beside my bed. First, let me say how sorry I am about your health situation. The Bennetts have been waiting for this day for 28 years, though they never wanted it to come under such circumstances. They've been looking for me all this time? My voice sounded small, childlike. Without cease, he confirmed. Shortly after your biological parents discovered what had happened, they established a trust fund in your name. They knew someday you might need resources they couldn't directly provide. He opened his briefcase and removed a document. This trust was created with specific provisions, including medical emergencies. As your sister has already begun the process, I'm here to facilitate your access to these funds for your treatment. I looked at Jessica in wonder. So that's what you meant by resources? She nodded. I've been in contact with Martin for 2 years. The Bennetts wanted to approach you directly, but they were afraid of the legal ramifications. Your father, our father, made some very specific threats over the years. Martin handed me a folder. These are the trust documents. You are the sole beneficiary of approximately $1.2 million, accumulated over 28 years of deposits and investments. Your biological parents contributed monthly, never missing a payment, even during financial hardships. The amount stunned me into silence. But more than the money, it was the dedication behind it, the unwavering commitment to a daughter they hadn't seen since infancy. There's something else you should know, Jessica said gently. The investigation I've been conducting uncovered evidence that Dad paid a significant amount to expedite your adoption illegally. There were bribes to officials, falsified consent documents, backdated paperwork. Martin nodded gravely. The statute of limitations has expired on some aspects, but there could still be serious professional and possibly criminal consequences for your adoptive father if this information became public. Is that why he was so desperate to keep this secret? To protect himself? The betrayal cut deeper with each revelation. Partly, Jessica admitted. But I think it's more complicated than that. In his mind, he was creating the perfect family. You were his achievement, the brilliant daughter he could shape into his ideal. The truth would have meant losing control of that narrative. Jessica's phone rang. She glanced at it and her expression softened. "It's Catherine, your biological mother's sister. She'd like to speak with you, if you're ready." With trembling hands, I took the phone. "Hello? Lily? Or, I should say Amelia?" The voice on the other end was warm, with a slight southern accent that sounded oddly familiar. "This is your Aunt Catherine. I'm on my way to you right now, just boarded the plane. I can't believe I'm finally talking to you." Her voice broke, and I found myself tearing up in response. "I can't believe this either. This is all so overwhelming." "I know, sweetheart. Jessica has kept us updated on your condition. I want you to know that the adrenal issue you're experiencing, it runs in our family. I have it too, as did your grandmother. We know exactly which specialists to contact and what treatments work best for our particular genetic expression of the condition." The practical information was somehow more emotional than any tearful reunion could have been. These strangers knew more about my body's needs than the people who raised me. "Your mother, your birth mother, she never gave up looking for you," Catherine continued. "Even after they had Jessica and legally adopted her, they kept searching for their firstborn." I nearly dropped the phone. "What did you just say?" Jessica gently took the phone from my hand. "Catherine, I haven't explained that part yet." "Yes, I'll tell her now. See you soon." She ended the call and faced me, her expression a mixture of guilt and relief. "Amelia, there's one more thing you need to know. The reason I've been so invested in finding your biological family is because..." She took a deep breath. "They're my biological family too. We're actually biological sisters, just like we've been raised. After losing you, Catherine and Michael had another daughter. When they couldn't afford the legal fight to get you back, they made the heartbreaking decision to let our parents adopt me too, so at least their daughters could grow up together, even if they couldn't raise us themselves." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. All these years, Jessica wasn't just my adopted sister, she was my biological sister too. The puzzle pieces of our bond, despite our parents' differential treatment, suddenly made sense. We had always been connected by something deeper than our shared upbringing. "So when you found those adoption papers..." "I found both our stories," she finished. "And I've been trying to reunite our family ever since." The next morning, Dr. Rivera cleared me for discharge, with strict instructions for follow-up care. My diagnosis was confirmed: Addison's disease, likely genetic, exacerbated by chronic stress. With the proper treatment plan now in place, thanks to the detailed family medical history Jessica had compiled, my prognosis was good, though recovery would take time. Jessica brought me to her apartment rather than mine. "It's closer to the hospital if you need to go back," she explained, but we both knew the real reason. She wanted to keep me away from our parents until I was stronger. Her place was smaller than mine but cozy in a way my meticulously decorated condo never managed to be. Photos covered her walls, many I recognized, but some showed strangers who were apparently our biological relatives. One photograph in particular caught my eye, a woman who looked strikingly like me, holding a baby. "That's Catherine with you, a few days after you were born," Jessica explained, setting down my bag. "I found it among Mom's hidden things." Our mother kept photos of my biological mother? This surprised me. She kept a lot of things Dad doesn't know about. I think she's always had mixed feelings about how everything happened. We spent the afternoon planning our next steps. Jessica called her school to arrange emergency leave. I contacted my office, giving a vague explanation about a health crisis requiring extended absence. My boss was surprisingly understanding, apparently seeing me collapse had shaken everyone's perception of the machine. In the evening, there was a knock at Jessica's door. A tall man with salt and pepper hair introduced himself as Daniel Morris, private investigator. "Jessica hired me 2 years ago to locate your biological family and gather evidence," he explained, setting a thick folder on the coffee table. "What I found goes beyond simple adoption irregularities." He spread photographs across the table, pictures of me as a toddler with people I didn't recognize. These were taken at a park near your biological parents' home when you were almost 3. Before your adoption. That's impossible, I said. I was adopted at 3 months. That's what the paperwork says, Daniel agreed. But these photos tell a different story. Your biological parents had regular visitation with you until you were nearly 3 years old, when your father, Mr. Taylor, suddenly terminated all contact and finalized the adoption. Jessica gasped. So they knew her? They had a relationship with her? Daniel nodded grimly. I believe Mr. Taylor leveraged Catherine Bennett's postpartum depression diagnosis to have her declared temporarily unfit. The arrangement was supposed to be foster care with supervised visitation, not permanent adoption. But when the Bennetts began getting back on their feet, Mr. Taylor moved to terminate their rights completely. The betrayal deepened with each revelation. So I wasn't a newborn who never knew them. I was a toddler who was taken from parents I recognized. Your earliest nightmares, Jessica said softly. You used to wake up crying for someone named Cat. Mom always said it was because of a cat stuffed animal you lost, but... It was Catherine, I finished, feeling sick. I was calling for my mother. 2 days later, feeling stronger, I decided it was time to confront our parents. Jessica suggested waiting for our biological aunt to arrive, but I couldn't delay. This wasn't just about reconnecting with my birth family, it was about holding accountable the people who had lied to me my entire life. We arrived at our parents' suburban home unannounced. My mother opened the door, her eyes widening in surprise and what looked like fear. Amelia, Jessica, she stammered. We weren't expecting you. Clearly, I replied coolly. Is Dad home? She nodded, leading us into the formal dining room where dinner was already set for 2. My father appeared from his study, his expression hardening when he saw us. You should have called first, he said. Like you should have called before stealing someone's child? The words shot out before I could stop them. My mother flinched. My father's face flushed with anger. I see Jessica has been filling your head with nonsense, he said dismissively. Whatever you think you know. I placed Daniel's folder on the dining table. I know I wasn't adopted at 3 months. I know I had regular visits with my biological parents until I was almost 3. I know you used Catherine's temporary health issues to manipulate the system and take me permanently. I extracted the photographs, spreading them across the table. And I know you've been lying about it my entire life. My mother sank into a chair, her hand covering her mouth. My father remained standing, his lawyer's instincts visibly kicking in as he assessed the evidence before him. Whatever you believe happened, the adoption was legal, he said carefully. The courts approved everything. After you bribed officials and falsified documents, Jessica countered, placing another stack of papers beside the photos. Daniel found the money trail, Dad. $15,000 to a court clerk in 1996. Another $20,000 to a social worker who suddenly changed her recommendation about the Bennetts' fitness as parents. My mother's composure finally broke. Robert, what is she talking about? You said everything was above board. You said the Bennetts willingly gave up their rights. My father's cold expression never wavered. Barbara, don't say another word. This is clearly an attempt to extort us. Extort you? I laughed bitterly. I don't want your money. I have a trust fund my biological parents set up for me, parents who never stopped looking for me even when you made it nearly impossible. I gave you everything, my father hissed. A life of privilege and opportunity they never could have provided. Look at what you've become because of us. Look at what I've become? I gestured to myself, still pale, still weak from my collapse. I worked myself to the point of physical breakdown trying to earn your approval. I have no real relationships, no joy in my life, just achievements that never felt like enough. My mother was openly sobbing now. Robert, we should have told her the truth years ago. I wanted to tell her. And risk everything? He snapped. Our reputation? My career? The firm would have disbarred me. So that's what this was really about, I said quietly. Protecting yourself. It was about creating a family, he insisted. We couldn't have children. You were being raised by unstable parents. I saw an opportunity to solve both problems. They weren't unstable. Catherine had postpartum depression, a treatable, temporary condition. And Michael was by all accounts a dedicated father. You have no idea what kind of people they really were, my father said dismissively. Actually, I do, Jessica interjected. I've spent 2 years getting to know them through letters, calls, and video chats. They're kind, loving people who have spent 28 years grieving the daughter that was stolen from them. My father turned to her with contempt. And I suppose you believe you should have been with them too? That we robbed you of your real family? No, Jessica said evenly. I believe I was exactly where I was meant to be, positioned to eventually help Amelia discover the truth. If you hadn't taken her, I wouldn't exist. Catherine only got pregnant with me after losing Lily, after losing Amelia. My mother looked up through her tears. You've been in contact with them for 2 years? Behind our backs? I had to be, Jessica replied. Dad made it clear what would happen to anyone who threatened his perfect narrative. I stepped closer to my father, meeting his gaze directly. I came here today to tell you 3 things. First, I know the full truth now, and no amount of manipulation will ever make me unknow it. Second, I'm going to meet my biological family, and there's nothing you can do to stop that. And third, I'm giving you one chance to make this right. Make it right? He scoffed. What does that even mean? It means acknowledging what you did. Apologizing to the Bennetts. Facing whatever professional consequences come from your actions. And most importantly, respecting my choices moving forward. My father's expression turned calculating. And if I refuse? What then? You'll destroy this family over something that happened decades ago? Think about your mother. Think about your inheritance, your position in society. That's your final answer? More threats? I shook my head sadly. Then we have nothing more to discuss. As we turned to leave, my father called out, if you walk out that door and pursue this, you're no longer our daughter. No more financial support, no inheritance, nothing. I paused in the doorway. I stopped being your daughter the moment you chose your reputation over my health. And as for your money, keep it. My real parents made sure I'd be taken care of. As Jessica and I walked to the car, my phone buzzed with notifications. Multiple calls from my workplace, texts from colleagues asking if I'd seen the news. What's happening? Jessica asked as I scrolled through messages. Dad's trying to destroy my career, I said, showing her an email from my boss. He called my company claiming I'm having a mental breakdown and making dangerous accusations against my family. He's trying to paint me as unstable. Jessica's expression hardened. He's desperate. This is what he does when he feels cornered. Well, it's not going to work, I replied, sending a quick response to my boss requesting an urgent meeting. I have medical documentation, witnesses to my collapse, and a solid diagnosis. His attempt to discredit me will only expose him further. As we drove away from the house I grew up in, I felt a strange mixture of grief and liberation. The family I thought I had was gone, had perhaps never really existed. But something new was taking its place, something built on truth rather than lies. The airport arrival area buzzed with the usual chaos of reunions and departures. Jessica and I stood near the baggage claim, watching passengers stream in from the latest flight from Atlanta. That's her, Jessica whispered, squeezing my arm. A woman in her early 50s approached, her steps quickening when she spotted us. She had my eyes, my cheekbones, my way of tucking hair behind one ear. Catherine Davis, my biological aunt, my mother's sister. She stopped a few feet away, her eyes filling with tears. Lily, she whispered, using my birth name. Then, catching herself, I'm sorry, Amelia. Either is fine, I said, my voice thick with emotion. She closed the distance between us, wrapping me in a tight embrace that felt strangely familiar. "You look so much like her," she said against my hair. "Just like Sarah at your age." "Sarah?" I asked, pulling back slightly. "Your mother. Catherine Sarah Bennett. Everyone calls her Sarah now." She stopped using Catherine after. She trailed off, then rallied. "After everything happened. Too many painful memories." Catherine, Aunt Cat, as she insisted I call her, had brought a suitcase full of family photos, medical records, and mementos. In Jessica's apartment, she spread them across the coffee table, creating a visual timeline of the family I never knew. "This is your mother at 20, just before she met your father," she explained, showing me a photo of a young woman with my smile. "And this is Michael, your biological father, during his college baseball days." The resemblance was undeniable. I had Michael's height and build, Sarah's features. Looking at their photos was like seeing my own face reflected back at me with slight variations. "Tell me about my medical history," I said, still processing everything. "Dr. Rivera says understanding the genetic component of my condition is crucial for treatment." Aunt Cat nodded, pulling out a folder of medical documents. "Addison's disease has appeared in our family for 3 generations. Your grandmother had it, I have it, and your mother developed it after having you. The specific variant we carry responds well to certain treatments but poorly to others. I brought all our medical records for your doctors." While we talked, my phone rang, my boss requesting a video meeting. I excused myself to take the call in Jessica's bedroom. "Amelia, we've received some concerning communications about your situation," he began, his expression grave. "From my father," I said. "I'm aware. He's claiming you're experiencing delusions related to your collapse, making false accusations against your family. He suggested we place you on psychiatric leave." I took a deep breath. What I'm experiencing is a family crisis related to recently discovered information. My medical condition is Addison's disease, a legitimate adrenal disorder with proper documentation from the hospital. I'm not having delusions, and I'd appreciate the company's support during this difficult time. My boss's expression softened. That's all I needed to hear. Several of us witnessed your collapse, Amelia. We know something serious is happening. Take the time you need to get well. Your position will be waiting. After hanging up, I rejoined Jessica and Aunt Cat, feeling a small victory in maintaining my professional standing despite my father's attempts to undermine me. There's something else you should know, Aunt Cat said gently as I sat down. About your biological parents. Jessica reached for my hand, and I knew the news wouldn't be good. Michael, your father, passed away 6 years ago. Cancer. Aunt Cat's voice broke. He never stopped looking for you. Had private investigators working your case until the end. The grief for a father I couldn't remember but who had never forgotten me washed over me unexpectedly. And my mother? Sarah? She's alive, but... Aunt Cat hesitated. She's been battling an aggressive form of the same cancer that took Michael. The doctors have given her months, not years. Finding you now, it's the miracle she's been praying for. Where is she? I asked, suddenly desperate to meet her while there was still time. Atlanta. She's too weak to travel, but she's waiting for you. Whenever you're ready. That night, after Aunt Cat retired to Jessica's guest room, my sister and I sat on the balcony, processing everything. Why didn't you tell me sooner that you'd found them? I asked, not accusingly but genuinely curious. Jessica sighed, looking out at the city lights. I wanted to make sure I had everything in place first. The legal protection, the medical information, the trust fund access. Dad has always been so controlling, so vindictive toward anyone who challenges him. I needed to be sure you'd be protected when the truth came out. You've been carrying this alone for so long. Not alone. I've had the Bennetts, our biological family. They understood the need for caution. She turned to me. Did you know we have 3 cousins? And our biological grandparents are still alive, living in Florida. There's a whole family waiting to meet you. Our family, I corrected her. They're our family. Jessica smiled, her eyes shining with tears. For years, I was jealous of you, the golden child, the favorite. I never understood why our parents treated us so differently. Now it all makes sense. They were overcompensating, trying to justify taking you. And I was just collateral damage in their narrative. You were never collateral damage to me, I said fiercely. You're the one who saved me, not just at the hospital, but from a lifetime of lies. The next morning, a courier delivered a thick envelope to Jessica's apartment. Inside was a letter from our mother, Barbara, the woman who raised us, along with documents and photos I'd never seen before. Amelia, the letter began. What your father did was wrong. I've always known it, though I convinced myself we were giving you a better life. After you left yesterday, I made a decision. Enclosed you'll find everything I saved from your early years with the Bennetts, photos, letters, mementos I hid from your father. I also included the original case files he brought home. They may help you understand what happened and perhaps provide legal recourse if you choose to pursue it. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope someday you'll understand I did love you, even if I failed you in the most fundamental way. Barbara. The documents confirmed everything Daniel had uncovered and more. My father had systematically manipulated the legal system, using Catherine's postpartum depression diagnosis to paint her as permanently unfit. He'd hidden positive reports from social workers, fabricated concerns, and ultimately leveraged his legal connections to sever the Bennett's rights completely. Will you pursue legal action? Jessica asked as we reviewed the files. I considered the question carefully. I don't think so. The statute of limitations has expired on most of it, and a legal battle would just drain energy I need for healing and connecting with my biological family. Dad's punishment will be losing the perfect daughter he tried to create. 3 days later, feeling stronger thanks to proper medication and reduced stress, I made a decision. I want to go to Atlanta. I need to meet my mother while there's still time. Jessica and Aunt Kat immediately began making arrangements. Within 24 hours, we were boarding a plane to Atlanta, toward the family that had been waiting for me for 28 years. The Atlanta hospice facility was peaceful, surrounded by flowering gardens and shaded walkways. Jessica and Aunt Kat flanked me as we approached room 215, where my biological mother waited. She's having a good day, the nurse assured us. Her energy is better than it's been in weeks. I paused outside the door, suddenly overwhelmed. What do I say to her? After all this time? You don't have to say anything, Jessica replied gently. Just being here is enough. The woman in the bed looked frail, her once auburn hair now gray and thin. But her eyes, my eyes, lit up with recognition the moment I entered. She extended trembling hands toward me. Lily, she whispered. My beautiful Lily. I moved to her bedside, taking her hands in mine. They felt familiar somehow, despite the impossibility of remembering her touch after so many years. I've imagined this moment for 28 years, she said, her voice weak but clear. Looking at you now, you're everything I dreamed you'd become. We spent hours together, making up for lost decades in precious minutes. Sarah shared stories of my early years, my first steps, my first words, how I loved being read to before bed. She explained how she and Michael had never stopped searching, how they'd moved to Atlanta to start fresh after losing me but had always left a trail for me to find if I ever looked. We had Jessica 2 years after losing you, she explained, smiling at my sister. The pregnancy was unexpected, a gift when we were at our lowest. We named her Jessica Hope, because she gave us hope that someday our family would be whole again. Why did you let them adopt Jessica too? I asked the question that had been troubling me. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. The most painful decision of our lives. By then, your father, Mr. Taylor, had threatened to use his connections to have us declared completely unfit if we fought for Jessica. We were young, broke from legal fees, and terrified of losing both daughters completely. At least this way, we knew you'd be together. Sisters, even if you didn't know your true connection. Jessica took Sarah's other hand. They made the right choice. I was meant to be there, to eventually help you find your way back to us. While we reconnected with Sarah, the legal consequences for my adoptive father began unfolding. The documents Barbara had provided, combined with Daniel's investigation, had been anonymously submitted to the State Bar Association. Robert Taylor was facing a disciplinary hearing and possible disbarment for professional misconduct. His reputation, the thing he valued above all else, was crumbling. Barbara had reached out separately, asking to meet. After careful consideration, I agreed to see her at a neutral location, a quiet cafe halfway between our homes. She arrived looking years older than when I'd last seen her, carrying a small box. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, her voice subdued. "I know I don't deserve your time." "I have questions," I replied. "Things only you can answer." She nodded, accepting this limited purpose for our meeting. "Ask me anything. No more secrets." "Did you know from the beginning? About how Dad manipulated the adoption?" Barbara sighed heavily. "Not all of it. I knew Catherine had postpartum depression and was struggling. Robert presented it as rescuing a child from an unstable situation. By the time I realized the Bennetts were improving and fighting to get you back, I was already attached to you. I told myself we could give you a better life, more opportunities." "And Jessica? Did you know her adoption was coerced?" By then, I knew Robert's methods were questionable. "But he convinced me having Jessica would be good for you, having a sister close in age. And selfishly, I wanted another child." She pushed the box toward me. "These are yours. Things I saved that Robert doesn't know about." Inside were childhood mementos with deeper significance than I'd realized. A small stuffed rabbit that had apparently been a gift from my biological parents, birthday cards they'd sent that never reached me, a locket with tiny photos of Sarah and Michael. "I should have been stronger," Barbara said, tears streaming down her face. "Should have stood up to Robert years ago. Told you the truth when you were old enough to understand. Why didn't you come to the hospital when I collapsed? Robert insisted we couldn't. He was afraid if you were vulnerable or medicated, you might somehow sense the truth. He's always been paranoid about you discovering your adoption, especially after we learned Jessica had found out." Her answer confirmed what I'd suspected, that even my health crisis had been secondary to maintaining their secrets. "I don't expect forgiveness," Barbara continued. "But I am truly sorry, Amelia. I failed you as a mother." "You did," I agreed, my voice steady. "But unlike Robert, you're acknowledging it. That counts for something." We parted with no promises of reconciliation, but perhaps a foundation for some future relationship built on honesty rather than deception. The final confrontation with Robert came unexpectedly. He appeared at Jessica's apartment unannounced, his typically polished appearance disheveled. "What have you done?" he demanded when I opened the door. "The Bar Association is investigating me. My partners are distancing themselves. 30 years of building my reputation, destroyed." "I didn't submit those documents," I said truthfully. "Though I'm not sorry someone did. This vindictive campaign won't change anything. You're still my daughter. I still made you who you are." I regarded him calmly, realizing I no longer felt the anger that had consumed me days earlier. "No, you didn't make me who I am. You tried to mold me into what you wanted, but the real me, the person I'm discovering now, was always there underneath." "I gave you everything," he insisted. "A life of privilege and opportunity. You gave me conditional love and impossible expectations. You taught me that achievement matters more than happiness or health. That's not a gift, it's a burden." His face hardened. "So that's it? You're throwing away your real family for strangers with a convenient story?" "I'm not throwing away anything. I'm reclaiming what was taken from me, my history, my identity, my biological connections. And I'm doing it not out of vindictiveness, but because I deserve to know the truth." "You'll regret this," he said, his voice cold. When the novelty wears off and you realize what you've lost. The only thing I've lost is the illusion of a father who loved me unconditionally. I forgive you, Robert, not for your sake, but for mine. I'm done carrying the weight of your expectations and your lies. His stunned expression as I closed the door felt like the closing of a chapter. A year later, my life had transformed in ways I never could have imagined. My health had stabilized with proper treatment guided by my family's medical history. I'd left my high-pressure corporate job for a position at a nonprofit supporting adoptee rights, where my marketing skills served a cause that deeply resonated with my experience. Sarah had defied her doctor's predictions, her condition stabilizing enough to leave hospice for home care. We spent precious time together, filling in the blanks of our lost years. Jessica had moved to Atlanta to be closer to our biological family, teaching at a local school while completing a counseling degree to help other families affected by adoption trauma. Barbara and I maintained cautious contact, occasional calls and emails, building a new relationship based on truth rather than obligation. Robert remained unrepentant, but his influence over my life had evaporated. His professional disgrace had been significant but not total. A suspension rather than disbarment, a demotion rather than termination. Justice of a sort, though not complete. My biological extended family had embraced Jessica and me wholeheartedly. Sunday dinners at Aunt Kat's house became a cherished ritual, the table crowded with cousins, grandparents, and family friends who had heard about Sarah's girls for decades. My health crisis, the collapse that had started everything, had become a blessing in disguise. My body's rebellion had forced me to confront not just my physical limitations but the emotional fortress I'd constructed. In breaking down, I had broken free. On the anniversary of my collapse, Jessica and I visited Sarah, bringing photo albums of our newly created memories. "Who would have thought," Sarah said, her voice stronger than it had been in months, "that your body giving out would be what finally brought you back to us?" I smiled, taking her frail hand in mine. My body's collapse revealed the truth my heart always sensed. That family isn't defined by secrets and control, but by those who show up when you need them most. Have you ever discovered a family secret that changed your entire perspective? Or experienced a health crisis that transformed your life in unexpected ways? Share your story in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that sometimes our greatest breakdowns lead to our most important breakthroughs. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, truth, however painful, always sets us free.